Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another Star Wars video. So today we're once again talking about Andor Season 2. My aim with this video is to answer some of the most asked questions. We're also going to talk about the Bail Organa recast controversy. We have some brand new comments from Tony Gilroy. But first, there was a character introduced in Episode 6. In the Imperial Senate, to begin the session, a terrifying alien recited the Imperial Oath. This character is credited as the Oathkeeper, one of Palpatine's most sycophantic representatives. As per tradition, every session of the Senate was brought to order by the Oathkeeper or the Speaker, the Grand Vizier Masamida. I was hoping it was going to be Masamida, but instead, we got this guy, who by the way is first mentioned in canon in the 2023 Dawn of Rebellion visual guide. He's a Palpatine loyalist, and his words make the senators tremble. Upon my life and honor, for the peace and bounty of all beings, my full allegiance, a galaxy of worlds, a galaxy assembled, an empire. According to Dawn of the Rebellion, the Oathkeeper is one of Palpatine's most trusted allies, right up there with Masamida and Sly Moore. The guide says this: governing the empire requires hierarchy and repeated organizational structures, and the Oathkeeper was there to remind the Senate of Palpatine's supremacy, the supremacy of the Galactic Empire. Full Senate sessions are becoming rarer. Extended recesses are common, as are abbreviated workdays. Many senators now rely on proxies while they stay in their embassies or on their home worlds. Every session is either brought to order by the Speaker, the Grand Vizier, or the Oathkeeper. It resembles the structure of the Republic, but is quintessentially more authoritarian. This guy was menacing. It's a very underrated moment, and I honestly think it was one of the coolest moments from the entire 3 episodes, and mainly because it was such a creepy alien design. They're trying to make you feel Palpatine's presence, his law, pushing down on the galaxy without showing him. And considering the Oathkeeper shared this role with Masamida, I wonder if we'll see the Grand Vizier in the final few episodes. We're now halfway through Season 2. So moving on my dear friends, this is a show that has attracted a lot of controversy. In the first 3 episodes it was the Bix moment, where the Imperial officer tries to, that word. And in this week's episodes, it was the Bail Organa recast. It's drawn a mixed reaction, and I wanted to talk about this because Tony Gilroy has provided new insights into the choice to have Benjamin Bratt play Bail Organa because Jimmy Smits was unavailable. And he even predicted fans were going to be talking about this, and he has a really interesting justification. And as you're going to see, they actually went back and added an additional scene to help fans process this recast. So it happened in episode 6. Mon Mothma and Perrin were headed to a party on Coruscant. Before going in, they see a familiar face, or to Star Wars fans, a not so familiar face. Senator Bail Organa, a staple of the prequel trilogy who appears in the Kenobi show and Rogue One, the adoptive father of Leia who was mentioned in A New Hope. And fans have mixed opinions. They're divided on how they feel about Benjamin Bratt filling in Jimmy Smits' shoes. Many share my sentiments that character is more important than actor. Given the circumstances, it works. I'm happy with it. He nailed the mannerisms, the attitude, the physique and the presence. He's a really good pick. On the other hand, many took to social media to express how stupid a decision they find this. Some even insisting this is not Bail Organa, it's not canon. A lot of dissent and passionate voices, not because Benjamin Bratt was a bad choice, but because Bail Organa's likeness has been so quintessentially linked to Jimmy Smits. And the fans saying this don't want to hear that Jimmy was unavailable when they were shooting. They're saying given the circumstances, they should have just left him out this story. And they're saying it creates a continuity issue when you go back to rewatch Rogue One, because if Andor links to the 2016 film, then it means that when Bail Organa comes out in the Yavin 4 scenes, there's a confusing consistency issue. 2 actors playing this character just a few years apart. It's not like going back in the story or forward where a recast could make sense. It's literally the same timeline, in a story that literally connects to a movie where Jimmy Smits is Bail. But you can't have the story of the foundation of the Rebel Alliance and leave Bail out of it. That would make even less sense. Having a recast for a few scenes is better than nothing. And just a fun fact, my dear friends, before Jimmy Smits, George Lucas named him Bail Antilles, and he was meant to appear in The Phantom Menace, not Attack of the Clones. And he was portrayed by a different actor called Adrian Dunbar, who looks nothing like Bail Organa. So these kinds of things do happen in Star Wars, but I understand this is a bit different. He's now an established character, in a very pivotal moment in the timeline. But like I say, if the options were no Bail, or a recast where I think it works, I'm choosing the latter. And keep in mind, my dear friends, I know they're not always comparable, but we've had a history of Star Wars recasts. Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Palpatine, Boba Fett, and even Mon Mothma. who's seen two very different iterations. Genevieve O'Reilly for young Mon Mothma in Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, Ahsoka, and Andor, but the original in Return of the Jedi was Caroline Blackstone. And you might say this is different. This isn't a prequel or a sequel, this is a period of the timeline where Jamie Smits would still work as Bail Organa. But just keep this in mind. Mon Mothma in Ahsoka is only a few years in the timeline after Caroline Blackstone's performance. I get it, it's jarring. It definitely makes Rogue One a little bit awkward, and I would have preferred Jimmy Smits. But Tony Gilroy's putting the story first. He's prioritizing what they need to show. And Gilroy insists they tried to make it work, but Lucasfilm had a very tight filming schedule, and Jimmy just couldn't make it. But now Tony Gilroy's given us some more information. He says, if you thought Bail Organa was just going to be a brief cameo in episode 6, you'd be mistaken. There's more of him to come, and the reason they just gave us a little glimpse in the most recent episode was for fans to get used to the new face of Bail Organa. Tony was aware there was going to be backlash, and so he wanted fans to get the recast conversations out of our system before episode 7, because we're about to see more Bail Organa, more conversations between him and Mon, especially when we get to the Yavin stuff. Here's the quote, "Bringing back legacy characters is really complicated and it's very expensive. A lot of effort went into this, but it's one of those situations where I wanted to do something simple. He appears later on. He wasn't meant to be in episode 6. We don't do anything unnecessary, but in this case it was like, let's get him in here now so people can discuss it and get it out their system, and then he comes back to really work. So we've not seen the last of Bail Organa in this season, my dear friends. There are so many worse ways they could have gone about this. It still feels like Bail, if that makes sense. And if you disagree, that's fair enough. The original is very distinctive. This is the story of the founding of the Rebel Alliance. You have to have certain characters at play. Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and as one of the more recent teasers spoiled, big spoiler warning, Radus. So let's see how some Star Wars fans reacted. Character is more important than actor. It's not a big deal. I agree with this. He bailed from the role. Ah, you get it? Psh. So now we get into some of the more nuanced takes. I won't lie and say it isn't disappointing because I like Jimmy Smits. But recasts happen, and it would be weird if Bail wasn't in this story. Absolutely agree with this. It's fine, they'll have to recast more if we want more from the original and prequels. And this goes back to a conversation fans had after The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. Should they continue deep-faking Luke when the actors who did the physical performances were perfect? They would have been fine performing on their own, even without the effects. Same with Alden Ehrenreich in Solo. I know Kathleen Kennedy threw him under the bus for that movie, but he was not the problem. He was great as a young Han. Definitely not Harrison Ford, and I would say Benjamin Bratt as Bail Organa is a much better recast, but it still worked. So yes, more recasting should be the way forward. This person says, don't like, but what can you do? I just hate recasting in general unless the previous person is deceased. But the thing is, it wasn't necessarily a choice in this instance, and with the strikes, with the production delays, with what they were working with in a very tight schedule, I think they did an amazing job. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, guys, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Check out my full episode breakdown of episodes 4, 5, and 6, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you, always.